going on, everyone out there on YouTube? NES Ruler, and welcome to a brand new review. And this time around, we'll be checking out a film that was sent to me review by Arrow Films, and you can pick this up on Blu-ray at all your favorite online retailers. It is a slasher film from the year 1989 titled Hell High. So, I actually have this movie on DVD. I remember picking it up a few years ago because there's a commentary track on this film that was done by Joe Bob, which is always entertaining. If you guys have ever had a chance to listen to Joe Bob do a commentary track, I highly recommend it. And luckily Arrow ported that commentary track over to this release, so you guys picked this up, you can listen to it. But I mainly picked up that release to listen to it, and now this newly 4K transfer has been released from Arrow. And what do I think about Hell High? Well, 89, you get towards the end of the slasher craze, obviously. They're starting to burn out, and they're really starting to die off. You don't really see that many slashers in the late 80s. And this one pops up. And the main issue with this movie is it just takes too dang long to get started. The movie's only 83 minutes, and it really doesn't pick up until the 65-minute mark, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it takes pretty much the entire movie to get to anything semi-interesting, which is unfortunate because I feel like the film is pretty well made for what it is. I mean, there's good filmmaking here, and some of the acting is decent as well, but it just gets bogged down by a pretty poorly written script that this is full of filler and no substance. So basically we follow this high school teacher. Basically, when she was a little girl, she accidentally caused an accident that murdered two kids that were messing around on her property. And she's traumatized for life, obviously, and it flashes forward 18 years, and now she's a biology teacher at this high school, and we are introduced to our four main characters. We have the badass of the group. We have a football player, the football player's girlfriend, and the fat, lovable goof character. And basically, they decide one night to pull a prank on this teacher, and ultimately it goes too far, and something happens. And this something happens doesn't happen to the 65-minute mark, and the rest of the film is just them talking, planning this stunt and all this other stuff, and it's really not interesting. But once it gets to the climax of the movie, I mean, it starts to pick up a little bit, but then it just ultimately ends. And, once it starts to pick up the momentum, it ends, which is unfortunate because, like I said, I feel like it kind of could go into a cool place, but ultimately it goes nowhere, which is unfortunate. Because, like I said, I kind of dug the characters and some of the filmmaking. It definitely didn't feel cheap. But, besides that, it's just not your typical slasher, if you want to say. There's no final girl or anything like that, and there's no, reveal of who the killer is or anything like that. It's not your typical slasher in that sense. It really doesn't follow the tropes that often. But, once it gets to the goods, it's basically just generic kills that aren't very interesting at all either, and there's not really that many good effects or anything like that. So it's kind of just a pretty generic, uninteresting slasher film. But Arrow, this is one of the better transfers that I have to say that Arrow's done that I've reviewed for you guys so far. This movie looks really, 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 really solid, like really good. During the darker scenes, the natural film grain is really, really solid. And during the daytimes, the colors really, really pop. They did a really great restoration on this movie. And like I said, it's actually a 2K restoration, which is even crazier that this movie was a 2K restoration, and when you watch it, it looks really good. It wouldn't have surprised me that it was a 4K restoration. But it's approved by the cinematographer, who is pretty much the only one who's ever gone on to do something else after this movie. Everybody else, this is basically just a one-film kind of a deal, and they really didn't go on to do anything else. But like I said, you got a 2K restoration, which is pretty good, like I said. And then we got the original uncompressed audio, and then we got a new commentary track with the director and cinematographer. You got a commentary track, which I talked about earlier, with Joe Bob. And then you got some new features. You got a new, 45-minute interview with the director, which was pretty interesting. I watched a little bit of it, and to hear him talk about how the movie came to be and what inspired him and things like that, it's kind of interesting. That's what I like about Arrow. They release movies and put interesting features, lengthy features on their releases. So we got that, and then we got a new interview with the cinematographer and some more new interviews with the actors and the composer. The soundtrack of this movie is quite good. The score has that synth style that you kind of expect from slasher movies. It kind of goes into places where it kind of tails off, but it's mostly a pretty interesting and solid score. So lots of interviews on this, and you got a lot of, other features that were on the previous release. If you guys have this, that was released way back in the early 2000s by Shriek Show. So a pretty lengthy list of features here from Arrow. And you get your usual packaging. This time around, though, you get a nice slipcover with the original cover art with some back art. And then you got your usual disc, reversible cover art. And you got your booklet, which talks about the movie and things like that you usually get with an Arrow release. So package-wise, it's a very nice package from Arrow like they usually do. But the film just didn't really fancy me too much, but I still feel like to see this kind of movie get a good restoration by Arrow is quite nice. So that is my review of Hell High. If you guys like this review, please give it a thumbs up, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/NESRuler22. I hope everybody's doing well, and I shall talk to you guys soon. See you guys.